I was driving by here earlier this morning and I saw somebody put something out on the curb. So we're going to see if it's still there. Probably a 1990s Orion cheap type television. But I'm willing to take a look at it. Something to do, you know? Project resurrection video, as Shango likes to say. Somewhere along here. Trying to remember where it was. A lot of people just get rid of these things because, you know, flat screen. They gotta have their flat screen. There's something over there next to the trash can. I wonder if that's it. It's kind of looking like it. It's hiding behind that water softener. Yeah. I'll just pull over here. Yeah, there it is. It's been sitting outside a while. Why not? So here's a closer look at our specimen. I think a car battery was sitting on top of this. You've got this battery acid schmoo. Lots of moisture. Got wet or something. It's an Sv-2000. I think that was a Montgomery Ward's thing. Let's see here. Or do we even know? No, Philips Consumer Electronics Company, 1998. Model 19 Sv-07 Bravo 101. And it's in very low end set, RF only. Look at that awesomeness there. The acid that's warping the cabinet. Probably pet urine or something. I think we might have to give this thing a hose job before we power it up or attempt to power it up. Let's get the back off. Alright, here's this piece of awesomeness here. Look at this. Battery acid everywhere. It's pretty epic. Flimsy board, wow. This is a Funai. It's definitely got some issues going on. It's hard to tell whether it was the battery acid that killed it or whether it was already dead and they put it outside. Man, how do we release the board here? I want to pull this board out and take a better look at it. Looks like it's held in there pretty well. You can see the majority of the acid damage down there. That's pretty awesome. But we're going to hose it off and let it dry out for a while and see what it does. Yeah, I know what you're thinking. He probably didn't remove the speaker, and I didn't, but I really don't care. Speakers are cheap and everywhere. I'm more interested about seeing if this thing will fire up. acid was already starting to etch away at the plastic. It's all warped and messed up here. I'm just going to wash this out. Just pull the board up here. My fingers keep getting in the way. Alright. Let's put the board back in, and I think what I'll do, just to accelerate the process, after I get all the loose water out, is I'll just strap the thing down in the truck and drive around with it for a while. Maybe a day or two. Between the sunlight and the air moving around, it'll probably be just fine. Most interesting thing is that the fuse, let's see, where's the fuse at? There we go. I don't know if you can see that. The fuse is not blown. The fuse is still alive. So there's a good chance that this thing was just parked because it was old or whatever and they got a replacement. So I'm going to get me some paper towels and just wipe the heavy water down, and then we'll strap this thing in the truck bed. And just wiping this thing down. It's definitely true it's going to be a lot cleaner than it was. After the acid's washed away, it doesn't look like there's any permanent damage, at least. And again, the fuse is not blown. So I'm thinking that this was just put away and got stored in the garage or something, where somebody put a car battery on top of it and pissed acid into the set. This actually has service controls on it. Look at that, vertical size, position, B+ adjustment. So this probably doesn't have any digital service controls. This is actually a Funai import, which means it was like bottom of the barrel. Bottom. Alright. Well, I'm just going to continue to pat this dry. You see, that's where I'm at so far. And then we'll drive around with this thing for a couple days to completely dry it out. I got to pull the CRT socket off there and make sure all the water's out of there, or that'll be a fun light show. I made sure that no acid remained behind the yoke. I might actually pull the yoke off and see if there's anything left there, acid-wise, just so we don't get a surprise. And then once it's done drying out, we'll fire it up and see what happens. And maybe we'll get lucky, and maybe it will be a completely dead pile of crap. But we won't know until we clean it up. Alright, so she's all patted down and strapped in. I also took off the tuner covers to make sure all the little tiny components in there get dried out. The cabinet's as dry as it's going to get. I've pretty much patted everything dry. The rest is up to air and sunlight. So when I get going here, we'll drive around for this for a couple days, dry it all out, let the sun beat down on it, dry it out. I've got the plastics covered so that the UV doesn't make the plastic any worse. But this should do it. Dry it out for a little while and then see how it behaves. And with any luck, it'll come back to life, assuming there was nothing wrong with it before it was abandoned. So this should be cool. We'll see how this one turns out. Alright, so it's been a couple of days of riding around in the back of my truck, being dried out by the air and the hot sunlight. So we're going to plug this thing in and we're going to see if it actually does anything now. If so, then we can work on tweaking it up and making it work nice. Or if it doesn't work, I'll probably just end up tossing it in the trash can. So let me plug it in, let's see what happens. Nothing. Like it's trying to do something, but it won't. Oh, we got something. And it powers down from the high voltage failure. Here's a lot of corona and stuff. Got a lot of noise going on with that yoke. All right. So, the fact that I hear a lot of stuff going on here, we need to examine that a little bit better. So probably arcing or moisture or whatever. Can't really see it from here, but I think we'll take it to the shop and we'll get it on the bench. And we'll pull the yoke off again and see if there's any more things that I've missed. But it runs, obviously, as you can see, which is a good start. I think if we pay attention to whatever is going on in here that's causing the high voltage shutdown. And it could be arcing in here too, because there was a lot of moisture under the around the bell. But it's a good start. It actually came on and ran, so cool. So let's get it on the workbench and see what it does then. Alright, so here we are. Let me turn the fan off real quick, otherwise I think we're going to have a wind noise issue. We've got to take this apart again, because there was a tremendous amount of noise coming from the yoke, which tells me that there was either moisture there or the leads of the yoke have been eaten by the corrosive effects of the acid. So I'm going to make a couple marks here on the yoke. Or actually, more importantly, the convergence assembly and where it sat. So I'm going to make a mark back here. And I'm going to make a mark here to know to set it between those two, and then this is the key position. That way, when we put it back together, we don't have to tweak with it too much. And so we'll pull off the convergence assembly, assuming it's not stuck to there. Just thinking about it. Yeah, this is the part that sucks. Trying to get this loose. Let's see if the yoke is as equally as stuck. Back in the day, you'd have something called yoke off. There we go, that came loose at least. We still have to find a way to get this loose, so let me use both hands. Sometimes what you have to do is take the clamp off and then very carefully pry at the little plastic fingers and get them to release themselves. You of course have to be careful, because if you slip and you neck the CRT, it's game over. These ones are on here pretty good. Let's come over here. I'm just using a very tiny screwdriver. Seeing if I can get these loose. something a little more fatter. There we go. Okay, let's go up underneath here. And I'm just twisting, try to free them. All right. Let's see if that does anything for me. Nope. It's still pretty stubborn. And it's starting to move. Yeah, obviously I don't want to break it. Nope. Come on off. Alright, there's that. Let's cut the tape here. Unplug the yoke. And in theory, this should come off relatively easy. Alright, so looking down in here, I don't see any burning or arcing. I mean, there's that little bit of garbage there. Not sure if that's meaningful. Let's look around the neck and see if there's any signs of crap. There's our little dead creature there that was living inside. That needs to be cleaned a little bit better. That could be the cause of it. So let me get a shop towel and some alcohol and we'll wipe all this down. Okay. Try to clean this up best possible. You know, I'm always amazed at how tiny the guns have gotten. Like the diameter of this gun assembly is about the size of one of a black and white set made about, like a small tabletop made about 1973, 74. The neck is super tiny, whereas the Delta gun tubes that you saw at the time had these huge fat necks. And then the, don't forget the, what was it, the 90-degree round CRTs, like the 21FJ, FB, CYP, etc. They all had huge, huge necks. But the guns look pretty good. They're not discolored or anything, so this is, the CRT is probably in really good shape, which is good. Something to play with. I'm going to clean around the Ultra connection too. Pretty much anything around the bell. This ground strap down here I know is a little crusty. As far as I know, it's still making contact. And then what I'll do, we'll get a toothbrush. There we go. Get a toothbrush and maybe clean this a little bit better with alcohol. Just because I want to get rid of that horrific noise. So let's see here. Up here I've got this. And we'll just dunk it. And then I'll just scrub all this junk out here. Alcohol's quick drying, it'll displace any water. That's a magnet. We can't lose that. Correction magnet of some kind. Okay. Just make sure there's no garbage remaining here. Let's just dunk it again. You have to be careful not to sever any of those loose wires. I don't think the acid attacked the yoke. I mean, there wasn't any signs of it. So, yeah, I don't know. It could be fine, it could be trash. Those are corrective magnets there underneath the tape, so I don't want to disturb those. Alright, so, let's see. Maybe just clean up a little tiny bit more there. I know in most cases I wouldn't be saving a 90s television like this, but I saw it on the side of the road and the copper scrappers hadn't gotten to it yet, so I figured, yeah, whatever. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and put this back on. I'm sure we'll need to align it for right now. If you have a reference, you can kind of sort of eyeball it and get it pretty true, and then just fine tune it. We're going to see if that stops the horrific noise, or at least lessens it. Plug the yoke back in. And then there's the convergence assembly. Which is going to be fun to put back on, because it doesn't want to cooperate at all. I figured as much. Alright, we're there at least. Like this. We'll find out. I'm not too worried about that yet. I just want to see if it works. We'll put our high voltage connection back in. Nope, that didn't make it. Sometimes you can do this one-handed. There we go. All right. I can do the convergence and stuff later. I'm not really concerned about that at the moment. Okay. Let's get this out of the way. I'm going to go ahead and unravel the cord and we'll fire it up. Alright, so here it is. Hey, no more snap, crackle, or pop. Looks like the degaussing is running though, and it shouldn't be. Whatever vertical issue it had seemed to correct itself. Interesting. Yeah, the screen's very crooked. Select language, review, to end, push exit, but I don't have the remote control, so sure, why not? Yeah, anyway, you can't do that, so I guess we got to power cycle it. Interesting. Alright, so we have the degaussing circuit continuously running, it looks like. So whatever's in charge of that isn't working right, not shutting off. And it doesn't sound like they use a relay, it sounds like they use a switching transistor. Well, anyways, let me unplug the degaussing so it's not endlessly running. Let's move this a second. That's the connector right there. It looks like,
Let's look at the circuit here. It's just that thermistor. So the thermistor could be defective. Doesn't look like there's a switch mode or anything. What we have to hope is they're not running the B circuit through the degaussing coil, but that wouldn't make much sense to me. Alright, so let me go fetch my signal generator and let's see what we can get out of it. Alright, with the signal generator hooked up, let's see what I can get out of it. Picture's still pulsating. See that? And the degaussing coil is disconnected. That's a little weird. Let's see, I think I'm on, there we go, I'm on channel 4. And as you can see, the picture is very crooked. And that's due to our yoke being misadjusted. So I'm going to come back here and loosen that clamp that we used to take it off. And then I'm going to rotate this ever so slightly. I don't know if you'll be able to see here, but try to reference it with the top. Turn it just a little bit. And now it's really crooked. Look at that. All right. Let's go back here. Little goes a long way. That's a little better, still a little crooked. Rotate it some more. Could be just a little bit better. Let's contrast that with the, that doesn't help. Yeah, there we go, exit. Okay, let's switch patterns. Here's a more fine convergence pattern. Yep, still got a little bit of tilt. It's also got a distortion up there, but that could be because of those magnets they put on it. Let's move that a little bit. It's not great. Let's turn off the glare. You can see that a little better. The convergence needs to be touched up a little, but it's really to be expected. In fact, we can play with that magnet assembly on the back that we were moving around. That makes it worse, that makes it better. Alright, the vertical's spot on. And these tabs on the back are usually colored, like this is blue and red, and this is red and green and the like, and we can tweak these. Unfortunately, I have to put that collar back on in order to get that right. That clamp that I took off, that's got to be on there so the whole thing doesn't rotate. So let me take care of that real quick. Alright, so now that we got the yoke on there, and this it tightened down, this, I don't know if you can see it, let me turn on the light here. This thing right here, this is your lock. And you move this to unlock the rings. See how it's loose now? Now you can move the rings around. So you have to do that first, otherwise you'll just start breaking things. So I'm going to see if I can clean up the red and blue here. By moving these magnets around. Definitely makes it worse or better. It's a little better. Going to have the greatest influence. what you want to do is you want to get the best coverage all around, which I can understand in some scenarios isn't going to happen because it's just not that good of a set. Yeah, it's better. Man, it's not great. It's pretty close. From about 3 feet it looks okay. I need to rotate the yoke again because I bumped it. Isn't this fun? It's been a while since I've done these. I'm usually used to the electrodynamic ones that have 50 bajillion controls on them you can tweak. This one ain't getting too much better. It is just kind of a cheap set. Maybe I'm just expecting too much of it. Alright, I think I'm going to lock the rings in place then, so it don't go nowhere. And then we'll lock the yoke in. I'm just trying to see here on the screen. Yeah, it's not perfect. Touch it up just a little bit. So let's loosen the rings again. And let's see if we can dial in that center because there's a little red bleed here. The camera may not even show it. Yeah, I think it's just going to have convergence issues at that top corner there, and we'll just have to deal with it. Up here it looks really crummy. The rest of it looks good, so we just have to deal with that. That is what it is. Okay, so I'm going to put the yoke back in, tighten the yoke down before we button this thing up. Let's see some color. Not bad. Here's your primaries. We definitely, I'm wondering what's with that hum going on there. Could be a bad capacitor, could be it just being pissed off because of the moisture that was inside. Vertical line good. I mean, all in all, it's doing pretty good. I'm going to pump up the brightness a little bit. Back it off until we just see the that helps a little bit. And all in all, it's not bad. Let's see. I suppose the next thing I can do is tweak the vertical size a little bit. Assuming that's even accessible here. Let's see. Don't mind me. I'm just looking around for things that are going to shock me. Let me get some light back here so I can see what I'm doing. Yeah, the controls are down there. There's your vertical size. Vertical position is a little bit off. The adjustments on this are so touchy. You turn it a little and it does a lot. Okay. Let's get a signal generator on it. Or actually, let's get the converter box on it. Okay, let's see how this looks on the converter box. Still doing its twitchy picture thing. I'm beginning to wonder if it's got a dying cap in the power supply or something. Doesn't look half bad. Let's see here. Do we have a, let's see, letterbox? All right. Still a little crooked on the picture there. Contrast and everything looks good though. Let's see, tilt the yoke a little bit. That looks a little better. We have no volume. That's probably because the speaker's dead. I'm not too worried about that. I can slip another one in there. We need to degauss the picture manually. Hooking the degausser back up doesn't really change much. The colors on this are just way too bright. It's like saturated. Let's turn the contrast down a smidge. Let's turn the color down a smidge. Turn the sharpness up a little bit. Okay. It's coming along. Doesn't look great yet. Yeah, we do have some hum in the picture. Look at that noise. Noise in the picture. But you can see on the screen there the ripple. And you can also see the fade from light to dark, from left to right when I go to the blacks. So it's definitely in need of a B-boost cap. Otherwise, it's looking pretty good. Not bad. Something you just picked up off the curb. Text on it's actually pretty sharp. Ocean Beach residents tear down fencing officials put up to decrease gatherings. It's looking pretty good so far. I'm happy with it. We need to fix the power supply issue and maybe see if there's an AGC adjustment or an AFT adjustment, because it is a little bit grainy, like there's a weak signal. But so far so good. And then we need to manually degauss the screen. But yeah, because you can see it pulsating there. Like the well, the camera's going to blank it, but it's running at about 50 cycles now because of the no vertical sync and refresh rate and all that. You can see the purity stain there we have to degauss. Another one up there on the corner we have to degauss. But so far it's doing pretty good. So I think we just need to take a look at what's left in the power supply to clean that up. So the prime suspects are over here in the main power supply. You've got 100 at 160. You've got the 35 volt ones here and here probably aren't going to do much. But your B boost cap over here, I forget what value this is. It's something small. But that B boost cap, which is hiding over there, right there, is probably starting to open. And I think I'll just go over the board and check the caps and maybe do some light soldering and stuff, because we've got a hum in the picture, and it could be that 220 at 200 volts is to blame too, but I've got another one of those if I need to swap that out. It's kind of warm too. It shouldn't be warm. And this heatsink is just above room temperature, so that is suspect. It might be leaky. We'll go over the bottom side of the board and touch up any soldering. I'm pretty sure that thermistor there needs to be touched up, because look at how brown and overheated it is. But so far so good. I'm liking where this is going. Alright, so we got the board up a little bit. We're going to just do some checks on capacitors and things here. I've got them circled because I had a hard time placing where they were, going from top to bottom. And we're going to look at some suspect areas of resoldering here, check the soldering on the flyback. But just coming here, the main filter cap still checks okay. And of course the phone's going to ring now, because everybody calls 2 hours before we're open. Alright, that one's suspect. That one seems okay. That one seems okay. That one seems okay. Alright, so far so good. Check the ones in the vertical over here. So far so good. Alright, so no obviously dead caps. So what I think we're going to do now is some slight touch-up work on the soldering here. I'm going to see if I can zoom into that spot. Maybe you can see it, but right over here for sure, this needs help. This coupling here is not looking great. Up here, this little regulator device is pretty toasty. So I'm just going to kind of do a once over on the board and hopefully clean up some of these joints. We'll check this degaussing thermistor. That was interesting. That lead was just kind of sloppy and loose there. Come up here. Solder that regulator. The connections here that need to be touched up. I know everyone's going, holy crap, he's got a camera mount. Yeah. Gotta have two hands to solder, really. All this stuff on the flyback looks pretty good. Trying to just see if I can spot anything else. But so far the soldering on the board looks good. One thing I did notice when I tested this cap over here is this was like, tests almost like a dead short. Of course that one does too. Could be the ESR's is really good. This one up here, this B-boost, I was suspect of. Test the same as dead short. But that couldn't be shorted because that would blow the fuse. So I guess that's okay. I'm just going to go over this with a magnifier and see if that board's happy. And then we'll pop it back in again. Okay, so I did some resoldering. There were two additional caps I did not check here. There's a 4.7 at 250, which I'm going to have to zoom out here so that you can see the ESR meter. And then maybe we'll point this light away a little bit. Yeah. 4.7 at 250 tests okay, pretty much how I would expect it to. But there's another one in the B circuit that's a 1 microfarad at 250. It doesn't test so good. It's pretty weak. You can see there it just barely deflects the meter. And just, if you're curious what a new one looks like, I've got a new one in hand here, and it deflects fairly well. About double that of the other one. So I am going to change that. That may have something to do with our smearing and our light to dark pattern that's common in B voltage filtering circuits. And that's this guy up here. I'm going to go ahead and change him. I did do a little more solder work on this part of the board, which is looking kind of touchy. I already soldered the vertical IC because that's just a high point of failure on these sets. One thing I did not do yet, though, is we were wondering about that degaussing thermistor. And so what I am going to do, I don't know if you can see that meter there. Maybe if I backlight it a little bit. We're going to measure the degaussing thermistor. So it's, what is that? Come on, get in there. 9.3 ohms cold, so that's good. That means that that's there. And then if we look at the degaussing coil, probably because I disconnected the degaussing coil, that's why I'm not reading it. Let's hit that back up momentarily. And we've got 11 ohms on the degaussing coil. So both the degaussing thermistor and the coil are good. But we still got that purity stain that we need to take care of. So anyway, let's change out that cap. And I'm just going to come up here. By the way, I don't have a desoldering iron. I typically use wick, but this this Chem Wick by Chemtronics is really good. It's quick, it's not messy, it's effective. AC just kicked on. It's about 87 outside already. It's only about 9 in the morning. All right, so we're going to pull him out. And we're going to stick the new guy in here. Assuming I can do this without having to flip the board over too much, because I'm kind of out of movable space. There we go, through the hole. And we'll solder him back in. And we'll trim our leads. All right. So go ahead and put our board back in, assuming it's going to cooperate. Let's hook that up. Let's get our yoke. You can kind of see what I'm doing here. Make sure that's plugged in right. I did get another speaker in it, because the other one was in fact bad. Open voice coil. I don't think that has anything to do with the bath. It might be, but I don't think so. Let's remember to hook this up. All right. So that's all back together. And out of curiosity, I'm going to see if the picture's improved any. I doubt it. But it's worth a look. So let me get this hooked up here. See how it looks now. Still got that pulsating thing going on. I still have some purity stainage here. Let me grab a magnet real quick. Now I know everyone's going to freak out that I have a big giant magnet, but I'm going to see if I can influence that stain to go away. Whoop! Doesn't help that I just whacked the camera mount. See if we can, oh, more magnetization. Woohoo! Aren't magnets fun? Switch the poles. That's getting a little better. Not so much. What I'm doing by doing this quickly is drawing it away from wherever part of the mask it's adhering to. There we go. That's a lot better. Still a little bit of stainage there, but not bad. All right. A lot more uniform there. The camera's probably blanking it a lot. And you know, it might just be the jiggles there because of the it's running at 50 cycles rather than using the OSD as its own overlay with its own sync. I don't know. Anyway, that seems to have cleared up the purity issue, so I'm going to go carefully put this magnet away. I noticed that the on-screen display is kind of freaking out. You'll see the blue flicker on and off momentarily. So I'm going to kind of leave that on a little bit while I get the converter box out. See it twitching and freaking out. So I don't know if that's just because it thinks it's getting a signal momentarily or because of something else. Maybe our 5-volt supply's dirty. Who knows at this point? This thing is such a basket case. It's hard to tell what good will actually become of this set. But really, we just need to get a signal hooked up to it at this point. Of course, I've already run out of space here. Yeah, don't mind me. Flicker, flicker. We'll hook up our RF. I looked into doing something like a composite mod where everyone talks about the RGB modding, but this this jungle IC on this set really isn't fit for that. And I suppose you could get it to work, but I didn't see anything looking up the data sheet on that chip that would have indicated that there would have been a pass-through that we could mod the chip for RGB. Oh, look, we have sound. Amazing. All right. Oh, look, it's Bob Ross. Everyone likes Bob Ross. This channel's always messed up. It's always got this kind of distorted pattern on the screen. We still got a little bit of smear.
Giving us an exclusive look at its top summer trends. Not surprisingly, nobody's flying. People are in the car. So the road trip songs. Some great top
The tint, in my opinion, is a little bit off.
One of them, Life is a Highway. By the way, you know it from the Cars movie.
What I notice about this is that pastel colors are like really weak, and the solid colors are like excessive. Make it a little softer looking.
Pumping into San Diego County. Now, this cloud cover is going away. The chances of rain are going away, and they'll stay primarily to the north. That's in Riverside County, San Bernardino County, Orange County, Los Angeles, Ventura. We'll get some light precipitation. You see all this moisture moving in from the south. Now, we do have cloudy skies outside right now through a good part of the county.
A little more tweaking, it's looking better.
The sunshine will come out, and temperatures are really in the valley. Thank you for helping our neighbors during this urgent time of need.
So the housing crisis could be looming. How many Americans are at risk of eviction as this pandemic continues? And then how an aquarium is using coins to help care for its animals. Plus, Jacqueline Sarkeesian.
For more information, call 1-800.
Also, the DC restoration on this is kind of crummy, but I kind of expect that out of a cheap set.
Want in on the scoop? Antenna TV has the exclusive with all your favorite classic TV and entertainment stars.
But all in all, for something that was soaked in battery acid and hosed out, it came out okay.
And that's securing your dressers and chests.
So it's running. There were no adjustments that I found for AFT or AGC, RF AGC or anything like that to make the picture a little less grainy. This is basically just your entry-level budget set, and I don't think that there's anything about it that's going to improve much more. It's got an okay picture. The CRT is in good shape. It's sharp. It's got good grayscale. I think this just is what it is, and this is as good as it's going to get.
How dynamic our forests are.
Go west and dig into the history of the Rocky Mountains to discover untold stories.
To understand what's happening today, having historical context is really important.
Go west to know more about
Let's see if we can
and learn what it means.
maybe adjust the focus on the flyback. I'm going to get in the way of the camera here for a little bit. That's about as good as it gets. We can increase the sharpness a little bit and see that
I left home when I was 17 years old.
it's a little better.
Dream that I have been able to live out beyond my wildest expectations.
When I went to Harvard Law School, and Barack Obama and I met, and I looked up to him a lot, not just because he told me.
So, can I
I just love digital around here. It's just so fantastic.
my NBC7 First Alert forecast is coverage you count on.
Okay, well, I think this is as good as it's going to get. I'm not really going to mess with it anymore. So we're going to call this one done. And it's a perfectly usable set. If you have to have an AV input, there's a RF modulator you can get cheap online. You can get one of those HDMI to AV, and then through an RF modulator, hook up your Chromecast, Amazon Fire, whatever you want to use, Roku box. But yeah, that's it. So I hope you guys enjoyed this one. More stuff to come soon.